And we're back. Today I was supposed to assemble the rockers, and then that's my plan, but I did have a couple of mistakes that I made before that I wanted to talk about. I mean, it's nothing that you can't easily just go back and do, but I left something out that probably would be a bit misleading if I don't say something about it. So what I do is I'll go back through and show what I've done. And then we'll get these rockers assembled. There was, literally like two things that I screwed up on. One was all the other holes that the buttons would normally go in. I had planned on leaving them open, and I hadn't thought about it. But it would then take forever to lubricate the entire rocker arm and shaft, because it's going to have to fill that entire shaft up with oil before you start having full-on lubrication. So when I was looking at the other rocker arms, I'd noticed that I'd forgotten that I'd plugged them all, and so I ended up tapping them and then put some set screws in them, some 5/16, 18 set screws, to essentially just plug the hole so you don't have to fill the entire rocker shaft full of oil before it starts lubricating the rocker arm well. The other thing that I did was I'd forgot that I'd sat down about a year and a half ago, and I'd already determined what the shimming was going to be on the rock arms to get the correct shim on them. So saved myself a little bit of time. Luckily, I found that piece of paper, and I thought, oh gosh, I forgot I had even done this. So the simple thing is just to show you what I had already done. So, all right, let me flip the camera around, and we're going to get to rocking and rolling. Okay, so here we are. With our complete table setup. I would like to give a shout out to a guy on the 215, 300, 340 message page. He actually shot me a video to show me how to get my iPhone to film in an entire broad picture instead of just having that small little window. So, shout out to him. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate the help. We did get it all ironed out, and hopefully this is a much broader picture for everyone. All right, so to start off, I found I had this piece of paper. I forgot I'd done it like about 18 months ago. But what I have here is I'd already set the rockers up. I had the other shaft that I completed, and I sat down and did it all for both sides. This is for my driver's side, which is what this was going to be on. And it's showing that, each individual shim that I had already measured, which puts the rocker dead center of the push rod and the valve. So we got a 60,000, 60,000, 60,000, 60,000, 75, 45, 75, and 45. Now, if you remember, I only have 15, 30, and 60,000 shims. So it's easy to get your 60,000s because you just put a 60,000 shim on there. But for 75,000s, you're going to need a 60,000 and a 15,000 shims. For 45, you're going to need 30 and a 15, and then so on and so forth. But we're going to go ahead and assemble these rockers, and then we're going to test fit them on the cylinder head to see how it actually goes. Now, if you remember, here's my shims that I'd already honed out. You got your 15,000ths, your 30, and your 60,000ths. And then there's two shims here that are on the end that I hadn't talked about before. But what these are shims that I had not honed out. So they're still smaller diameter than the Buick shaft. And what I use them for is to capture the entire thing on the end. If you see the end of the shaft is tapered, and that allows this thing to fit on there quite nicely and then be held into place. Remember, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit sloppy, because it does have a spring that goes in between this and the rocker, but it just holds tension on the end rocker. Okay, the other thing was the shaft. As you can see, I tapped all the other holes. And then what I did was I put 5/16, 18 set screws in there that are 1/2 inch long. You can't use really any longer than that, or it's gonna be sticking out. So I've already set them in place with some red Loctite, and they're ready to rock and roll. Now, don't do the ones on the end, because those are where your set screws go that capture the bolt that you're gonna put in there, that's gonna hold this whole mess together. Okay. So the first thing to do is to start off with essentially your bolted end, right? What you're wanting to do is to put the bolt on, because this is something that you've made at home. This is not something that you got out of a package. This is why, you know, building something is always more intriguing and fun than buying something. But these 3/8 bolts I got here are from ARP. They come with washers. I found the washer sucks. It doesn't work for what I wanted to use it for. So I bought a package of chamfered washers that are going to be able to capture everything. And I just used a couple of them on this. You really only have 2. But so what we're going to do is we're going to head and start assembly on this whole mess of stuff, right? So like I said, Buicks have a left and right rocker, so you got to make sure you got it in the correct orientation. The easy way to tell on the 350 and 455 rockers are this indentation here is for the rocker stand. Okay, so this always has to face the rocker stand. If you got it backwards, it's not beveled on this side for clearance on the rocker stand, so it'll bind up as soon as you put it together. Now, the easy thing is, you know, you have a rocker stand on either side of one of these bolts, so your rockers should go together like this. This would be your left, this would be your right. All right, so first things first is we got our red Loctite here, and we're gonna lock down this first bolt. Now you remember I told you that the bolt itself does not have a lot of threads. The hole is not necessarily the right size for a 3/8 bolt. Right now, I'm just going to apply a little bit of red Loctite in a couple spots, and it doesn't take much to lock it down into place. What I found works is that you take the other bolt and just run it around the threads, and it kind of it just spreads it out, literally spreads it out. Okay. Now, the best thing to do is you got to put your shim on. This is the end shim that's going to capture everything. I just used this shim because it's smaller diameter than the shaft, and this is a 60 thousandths. It doesn't have much flex to it. It is hardened steel, but what will happen is the flat face of this washer and then the tapered end of the shaft are going to capture that washer right here on the end. It can't really go anywhere. It is going to be a little bit sloppy, but that's not a very big deal because once you put the spring on in the rocker, it's held into place with just the spring tension, and it has a little bit of room to move, and that's what you want. Okay, so on goes your here, and then we just thread this dude into place. Now remember, the threads in here are not very deep. You can easily pull them out or just tighten it too much that the bolt just pulls out. You don't need gonzo tight on this because the set screw is what's going to lock it into place. Now she's snug, that's it. So as you can see, your end capturing device is a little sloppy. It's not a big deal. It gives you a little bit of room for the spring to do its job. Okay, so the spring, I like to take the spring. You can see witness marks on here of where it was actually rubbing at. This side would probably be your rocker side, to be honest with you. So we're just gonna run her down like that. And it fits right over the shaft, no problem. All right, so then your first rocker arm. There is no shims on the end really to get them in the center orientation. It's gonna have to be these shims here that orientate it properly where you want it in the middle. So see, you can see your spring here has tension up against the rocker, and it's just pushing on this the captured shim on the end. Okay, so next is going to be a shim, and we're going to need, according to this, 60 thousandths, which I'd already measured up, like I said last year. So here's the 60 thousandths shim. It's easy to tell which ones are the 60 thousandths, one are the 30, and one are the 15. The 15's like paper thin, and then the 30 is like twice as thick, and then the 60 is just one gonzo dude compared to the rest of them. So put your shim on there. All right, now there's our first shim. Okay, the next thing that's going to happen, because we do have, there's some pieces that go in here that capture the entire thing into place. And these are from TA Performance. They're actually for their roller rockers. But what I found is it's a stud kit for the roller rockers, but I just use them on these because, man, do they work well. They really hold the entire shaft assembly in there. And if you ever look at a hot rod Mopar, this is what they got for the top part of the stand, the capture piece for aftermarket stuff. So, but we'll get to that one here in a second. So what we needed now is, as we're building it, as we're going across, we're gonna need another shim. This shim's gonna be up against the stand itself. So that's gotta go into place, a 60 thousandths shim. And then we slide that dude on. All right, now you got your other rocker. Okay, so there's our first set of rockers. Now, if you notice, they don't exactly line up the way you're supposed to. That we'll get to that in a little bit. You need all the springs and everything in here, and then you can kind of situate it all. The last things you'll do is put in your locks, your set screw to lock it all into place. But you'll have to fight the springs and everything to do it, and I'll show you an easy way I found to do that. Okay, so there's your first two rockers. The next one is going to be this rocker. Okay, and then you need another 60 thousandths shim. Okay, now another 60 thousandths shim. And your next rocker. Just remember to keep, you're gonna have a stand in between these, so just keep that here. All right. Oh, my fault. I got way ahead of myself. All right, we're missing a spring. Okay, take that dude off of there. There goes your first spring. Okay. All right, now you put your left rocker on, your two shims, and your right rocker. Okay, and another spring. Okay, then your next left rocker. All right. We got the next left rocker on there, and we need to find out what is the shim package on that one. 75 thousandths. So to get 75 thousandths, we need a 60 and a 15 thousandths. All right. So we'll do like so. All right. Now you take your next rocker, and it has a 45 thousandths, which is a 30 thousandths and a 15. I always like to make sure that the thicker washer faces the rocker. Okay, now our last spring. This is where everything starts to get tight and bound up, and it's fun. Okay, so we need to do another 75 thousandths. So we put on our next left rocker, and we need a 60 thousandths and a 15 thousandths. Okay, and then the next one is 45 thousandths. So we need a 30 thousandths and a 15. And our last rocker. Okay, now the easy thing is we got to assemble this end portion the same way we did on the other side, except for it's all upside down. All right, so there goes our shim. Here is your 3/8 beveled washer. Just remember to make sure that the bevel is facing the outside, otherwise it gives it too much slop here. Oh, my fault. I got ahead of myself. We need the spring. So make sure your spring, looking at the witness marks, which side faced the rocker, which would be that side. Then your shim, your capture shim, I guess, and then your bolt. We got to put a little more Loctite on that dude. The red Loctite pretty much makes sure that this does not come loose. All right, and there's not really much tension on it. If you think about it, the other stuff was really just a simple freeze plug. Okay, I'm just going to tighten this dude into place. All right, I found a screwdriver through this hole. It'll give you something to grab hold of. So we're gonna snug them up. That's it. Remember, you don't want to pull the threads or nothing. So always tight. All right, so now we're on to other things. All right, so there's your rock arm assembly assembled. And we gotta put, first we gotta put the set screws in them. And then we got to put those pieces on there, and we got to make sure that the shims are separated to where the correct amount of shim is on each side of this, the capture. So first things first, I like to do this instead of messing with the springs and fighting everything 2, 3, 4 times. You pull it down, make sure you get the other spring down there, and then stick the screwdriver right through the hole. And then that gives you something to work with, okay? So you take your first set screw that you've made, and you put some red Loctite on that dude. Now it doesn't matter how sloppy it is, because you are going to clean it up. You can't honestly put that together with it being all messy, because the red Loctite will pretty much hold that rocker to the shaft. I doubt it would last very long. It would probably clean it off real fast. But any reason to not damage your stuff is probably a good reason. Okay, and we're almost down there. So you can only turn it a few turns at a time. All right, now I just tighten her up. Okay, and she's not going anywhere. Before we make it any further, wipe off all the excess Loctite. And then what I like to do is, after you get this wiped off, because some of it will get down into the metal there, the grooves, but I always take a paper towel and grab my trusty acetone, and I just clean it off real good. Now the acetone does break down the paper towel, so you don't want to play around with it too much. You're going to end up with a bunch of crap on there. But there's one side completed. Okay. Next side, same way. Push her down, make sure the spring is there. Put your screwdriver in. Let's get ready to rock and roll. Okay, so you take the next set screw. This one does not want to start easy. All right, she's tight. Let's wipe it off. Then you take your acetone, clean that dude off. You always want to run your finger over and make sure that the set screw is below the shaft. Otherwise, you're probably going to have a clearance issue, right? But she spins freely. She doesn't bind up. Same thing over here. All right, so we're almost there. Next thing we got to do is we got to put these into place. So if you go back to your shimming diagram, you're going to need 60 thousandths on either side of the capture, right? So, all right, so push this dude back, and you'll want to get your shims separated. I don't know if you can see this, but they're right next to each other because that's how you assembled it. They don't like to slide as much as the other stuff. Okay, and it's only going to get tighter as it goes. All right, so there we go. There's our capture in place. As you can see, it's a little offset because of the spring on the far rocker is not quite, it's pretty tight. But once you get it into place, it's okay. So, all right. Then you take the next set. You need 60 thousandths on either side, so you got to separate those two shims. There we go. Separated. Okay. Now, I know it's not centered up, and it won't center until we get the equal spring tension on all of them. Right, so the next one, 75 and 45. So you gotta look at it and get a 60 and a 15 on one side, and then the 15 and the 45 on the other. Okay. All right, so I got them separated here. All right, so there we go. Now, the next one. So same thing, 75 on the left, 45 on the right. You want to separate them. It's a lot easier said than done. Okay, now you got them separated. Drop in the last capture. Okay, and that's it. Now you have a assembled set of rocker arms, and we're going to test fit them on our cylinder head, which I already know that I have to take back off and clearance for these rockers. But other than that, that's how she goes. So let me get this engine spun around here, and then we'll test fit the rocker arms. So here's our Project Buick 350. I haven't really shown this to many people. Some people saw it on Uncle Tony's garage last year, but it's really just your basic Buick 350. Now I do have to pull the heads back off because I have to clearance the stand over here for the shims, just like ever so slightly, but it does hit on just that, the number 1 and number 8 cylinders. So I got to pull the heads to do that. While I got them off, I am going to change the valve springs and retainers. These are a dual spring that I had put on there, and when I had these heads made in 2000. It's not that it's too much, it's actually fine for what I'm using it for, but because the T&D rockers require clearance between the rocker, what the rocker would be here, but the rocker and the spring, of a maximum, the spring maximum for a T&D rocker can only be 1.336 inch diameter. Now these springs are 1.445. They're already too big to use with a T&D rocker. So what I decided to do was go with a set of beehive springs with a smaller retainer that's going to give me that extra clearance here at the top. That was kind of the idea. and we're gonna see how it works. If it doesn't work, I know it is still gonna work with the set of rockers that we made, but in reality, I'm hoping that the beehive spring, because the spring itself is a single spring and it's not a dual like this, and it gives you the same pressures, if not more or better, but then also a smaller retainer. And I have to do a little bit of homework because I don't know. These are all 11/32 valves like you use in a small block Chevrolet. So it's a small block Chevy valve that's in here. I'm hoping it uses the 10-degree retainer. And then, well, the 10-degree keeper. And then I should be able to use a set of comp beehive springs with the same spring pressure, but it's only a single spring. And so I don't have to take any springs off during break-in, nothing like that. You pretty much just put it together one time, fire it up, everything's ready to rock and roll, and then you have a lighter retainer, and the spring itself is a better spring. Okay, so it's progressive. It also helps with harmonics of the engine when you rev it up. Okay, but we're gonna fit our rocker arm on there and make sure everything clears. Like I said, I know it's gonna look a little goofed up right here because I got a clearance to stand a few thousandths. So when I take the heads back off, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. All right, so now you're in frame and you can see everything going on. All right, so here's a set of rockers that we just finished up. We're gonna try them out. Should fit pretty good. As you can see, I got the studs in here that you use for TA roller rockers. And I felt that was a much better combo for what I was trying to do than to run the factory bolts. These are much stronger. All right. Okay, so all right, let me grab the camera here and you can zoom in and see what's going on. All right, so I got the rockers on here. As you can see, they're all shimmed up pretty nicely. I'd say I might have to revisit. Oh, I don't know. Maybe this one here might have a little bit too much. This one here might have a little bit too much, but you get the gist of what's going on here. Just trying to get everything dead center in the hole, and the looks like it's going to be okay. Well, pretty dang close to being dead center. So that's it for now. One thing I did have, that's kind of delightful. I don't even know if it's going to work, but I have been working on secretly working on a valve cover without you guys. But what I did was I took a 300 valve cover and then I made it to a Buick 350 bottom. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to clear with the rockers. I hope so. I figured I'd try it out today. All right. I seem to have quite a bit of room in there. All right, well, that's good. So it looks like my 350 300 valve cover I'm going to use on this project is going to fit pretty nicely. I still have to finish the other one up. This one was more or less a test bed, but since I had to take the head back off, I haven't really tried anything out, and I wanted to see if it was going to fit with those rockers. Now, what I did do on these is I tried to clearance them. I tried to lift them up so that there was clearance in case I did decide to run roller rockers later on. They're actually a 1/4 inch higher here and 3/4 of an inch higher here to give it the right look, because it needs to be almost flat on top, like a nail head, to make it correct. So the only way to really do that was to angle it. And with the 350 Buick having a much higher deck height than the 300, like almost an inch, it changed the angle of everything with this head and the taller deck height. The head for a 300 is a little bit cut more at an angle like this, so it's not necessary to have this gap, but or not gap, but lift, this raise on the back side. Okay, other than that though, that's everything. Here's a quick walk around of what we're looking on the business end, I guess. The cylinder heads have been ported pretty big. It's not what you would think would be the best head to use, but it's a 73 head, and the 73 came with the 155 exhaust valves. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I think, yeah, 73. All right, so, but you see it doesn't have any of the EGR stuff here. Normally there'd be holes drilled for EGR and air injection, but there's not. And then the heat crossovers have all been plugged. And then the ports themselves are at a rough cut, right? But hopefully they do all right. I mean, it could have went out considerably more here, you know, and narrowed this up a bit. But we're just going to give it a go and see what happens. I'm sure as long as the car runs, I'm going to be happy. I doubt it'll be competitive in SEGA because there's already guys running big time dollar aftermarket stuff. And I'm just trying to build a home-built piece that never really was. So the cam is a Crowler piece. They had a clearance like a year ago. I got the cam for 35 bucks. It's an off-the-shelf piece. There's nothing high-end about it. But that's how she's looking at the moment. So, all right, I'll get back to y'all later, and we'll dive into something else tomorrow, probably the other valve cover. So I'll chat at you later, and then we'll come up with a plan for what to do this week. All right, thanks. Bye.